Setting up the glider is pretty straightforward. You start with some few buttons, raise the king post and attach here in the rear. It can be advantage to push by the hand on the crossboom just to get the tension and then connect it. Don't pull it in this rubber band. Variable geometry. Here is the gearing. It's very light on the variable geometry. In the nose you connect this one also with the safety wire here, and this makes sure that even though something happened behind there, you still will have the tension in the crossboom. For the rigging, it can be quite useful to put it on the tail, and the tips are the same as the Piuma. And how to do the tension of this, I need some help from Jan. At least I need 2 hands to do this. But the technique is that you pull here and push. You ride this one along the tip back like this. And here you feel it go snap, goes like this, and using the leverage like that. And this tips go in the small hole here. So you can loosen a little bit. So it's pinched down, that's fastened, then the Velcro goes together, and there you go. The 2 buttons in the undersail just fit in to its pockets and it's pushed in like this. There you go. The sprogs. There are only 2 sprogs on the whole glider, these small ones, and they are connected together with this wire so that when one is pushed down, the other one will go up. Tightening the variable geometry. That's full, which is some 4 or 5 meters, I think. And the glider tightens up quite nicely. No wrinkles. Here you can see the wire for the sprog. You can see how it lifts. And this enhances the handling on the full variable geometry settings. These nice looking tail feathers, the tips, what they actually do, they soften the stall characteristics a little bit, especially on sharp turning, low speed turning, thermaling and these kind of things. A small detail which is quite useful is you can tighten up the trailing edge of the sail. So when the glider becomes a little bit older and the sail weary, you can still avoid fluttering on the sail as the aging. The sail thickness is quite bigger than the Piuma. Those who are used to Icaro Piuma, like me, know that the sail is quite thin. But here it is more heavy-duty clothing. The leading edge, very smooth and nice, not a wrinkle. Airfoil seems to be thick. It's like a nice intermediate glider airfoil, and also the stall characteristic is very, very benign. The hang point is in the top in the king post. Adjusting the hang point back and forth is done with the king post itself. It's moved forward or reverse. The factory setting is this one, and I prefer to have a glider that is a fairly hands-off in thermals. So I put it to the second one. I do also that on the Piuma. This is a personal preference because it comes with an advantage in the thermaling, but a disadvantage in landing, because in landing you then need to make sure that you have the airspeed. You maybe fly a little bit slow if you let it go hands off then. So in the beginning, fly it with the factory setting, and if you prefer this hands off thermaling, then you can take it one notch back. When looking at the orbiter, you can see that the aspect ratio, the ratio between the chord and the wingspan, is quite high, 7.2, which is almost like a topless glider. So the plan form is quite promising regarding performance. When it comes to sizing, I am 85 kilo here, and my harness is at least 10 kilos with all the stuff and gear and covers, and which give me a hook-in weight of some, well, in the range just below 100 kilo. And for the medium-sized glider, this seems to be perfect. I now have about 10 hours on this specific glider, 3 flights and 10 hours, and covering about 200 kilometers cross-country. I use it mostly for cross-country. This is the first time I fly a low-key local flight with it. When you are a heavier pilot than me, more than 85 kilos, then you should consider this version. This is the L version. It is slightly bigger, can take a lot more weight, and Jan here, he is about 95 kilos. But then you still have a lot of spares, you can carry a lot of weight. And also it's a little bit personal preference. Do you want a floater? Do you want a little bit faster glider for taking some headwind? It's not a topless glider, that should be clear. Up to about 70 kilometers per hour you can hold your own against the topless gliders, but at some point when gliding at high speed, 70 or 80 kilometers per hour, then the topless gliders will advance. The strength of the glider is obviously the climbing. The name Orbiter is not without a reason. It climbs extremely well. It have an exceptional nice sink rate due to this aspect ratio. The airfoil, a little bit voluminous, gives a very benign stall characteristics, and also these tips makes it very, very predictable in 360 thermaling turns. You can throw it around just like the Piuma. It's very, very similar to the Piuma in handling when it flies on the low variable geometry. Inspection of the glider. You have these pockets where you can check the connection for the wires. Nothing is cracked, or also the tips. The inside here. You can check all these fancy sprogs that it actually is working. When you pull this one, the other one should go with it. The buttons. Here is something. Icaro has come up with a more heavy-duty tip. This is a little bit more sturdy than the usual ones, so it doesn't flip that easy. So this is an advantage, I think, The Piuma 2-year-old had the regular tips, but this one has some enhanced stuff. In the air it doesn't flutter or any sounds from the sail, even at the maximum speed. Maximum speed is maybe 90 kilometers per hour. It doesn't fly much faster than that anyway. The big elephant in the room is how does it compare to other sports class gliders. I have flown the geckos, I have flown many of the wheel swing sports, and I have about 20 hours on this glider. The 10 first hours was on a rented glider in Lanzarote, this place. So I had a run-in of those 10 hours. If you compare those gliders, they are not really apples and apples. The gecko that I flew was a racing version, and it was hotter regarding speed, maybe in the top end glide too. So that was 3 years ago, and the sail was PX, this transparent stuff. So if you compare a dark run version of a sports class glider, it is different, because dark run usually gives more soft handling. The PX stiffen the gliders a little bit, but you can maybe achieve something on the speed. When it comes to the wheel swing sports, well, wheel swing sport is a lot of variation of the same glider. The Sport 3 is something quite different beast than the Sport 2 and Sport 1. So if you should compare the Orbiter, it should have been with a Sport 3 with a dark on sail. And also the Gecko should be a 2020 version with dark on sail to compare apples and apples. So it's a little bit different to say what is the difference between these gliders. I think, which is just a premonition, is the Orbiter is something between the Sport 3 and the Gecko. The Gecko is a little bit more hot rod, but maybe stiffer on the handling. The Sport 3 is the sweetest handling, but regarding performance, I think that Orbiter is something in between the Gecko and the Sport 3 in all respects. Maybe the sync is best on this one, and this can have something to do with the aspect ratio. One other thing you get from a 2020 glider is that all the development going in the high-end topless gliders usually end up in these gliders. So probably Christian Cheek and Manfred Humer have put small details into the sail, because it's the sail that is the whole glider. But small details from the laminar also is here, without knowing. So you always benefit on buying a brand new glider. The sail is crisp new, and it has got all the small developments. So here we are. It's late in the evening, flying for many hours, and the last sun and last thermals are gone, and this is the first time I've flown this glider in a local flight. Actually, the 3 first flights were cross-country flights, accumulated 200 kilometers, so this was just a nice relaxed summer flight. Take a look at also the other 2 videos in the series of the review of the Orbiter glider. It will there be how it thermals in more advanced conditions, cross-country flying, how it's trimmed to fly hands-off in a thermal with 1/3 variable geometry, very easy to fly in the thermals, and also a little bit about how it performs in cross-country. It's not a topless glider, and it lacks the top speed of a topless, even though you can fly really long distance cross country with this thing. So take a look at the other videos too. Thank you for watching.